Very interesting news release from Gunsynd yesterday. Lots to talk about, and capping off quite a big year, really. It was quite the year for you at Gunsynd. Hamish Harris joins us now to talk about everything in that release. Has there been a dramatic change of focus?
I wouldn't say a dramatic change of focus. We've certainly switched gears and pivoted away from certain things like listed equities and our nickel exposure. We've obviously gone heavily into Canada, gold and copper and uranium are probably more of our focus now. The world changes and we've changed with it, and we're pretty pleased with the fact that we've got exposure to those three key assets and commodities. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, so you mentioned uranium. Your recent announcement suggested that a nearby company on the TSX paid vastly more than you did on your licenses. Why do you think they did that? And what are the implications, if any, for Gunsynd?
Well, we actually have a block, Grey Lake, obviously, is right next door to Mountain Lake, which got sold by ISO Energy to Future Fuels. The headline sales price is probably actually higher than what's the numbers suggest. That's because ISO Energy actually took a royalty over the rest of Sav Resources or Future Fuels other properties, and they were limited by a 20% takeover threshold. So the headline, the actual valuation is probably higher than what they paid. So that just goes to show how cheaply we've got our blocks, and not only that, how much value people perceive as in those blocks. I mean, ISO didn't lift a finger to do anything on those blocks because they obviously had some really good assets elsewhere in the Athabasca and in the USA. But there's still a non-compliant 10 million pound resource there. And the chaps behind Sav Resources are no fools. The geologist has got a well-known history with Patriot Battery Metals. And so they're very confident. And I tell you, it's very good to have a neighbour that's actually active. That helps everyone in terms of getting eyeballs on the projects, potential cost sharing. When we first got ground in that area, no one had basically done much apart from Whitecliff Minerals, who are now looking to drill next year, I believe. So it's good to have two active neighbours in the neighbourhood. Whereas 12 months ago, well, 18 months ago, there was no one doing anything in reality.
So there's the prospect of cost savings then, given that you have these two neighbours.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've spoken to one. We'll be in touch with another one in terms of sharing, whether it's helicopter costs or some camp costs or those sorts of things. It's a reasonably remote. I wouldn't say it's an extremely remote place. I mean, the near big town of Kugatuck, formerly copper mine, is not too far away by helicopter, so it's not terribly remote. But it certainly it's helpful for a variety of reasons, as I said, to have neighbours who are actually having work programs on the go.
So let's talk about Bear-Twit for a minute then. It was a fascinating RNS yesterday, and it seems the license has considerably more upside than you initially expected. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, absolutely. That was the historical data and the modelling done by the geos that third-party geos we've employed. Showed huge potential, we believe. If you look at the map on the RNS, you can see the drilling and Bear-Twit's only a tiny fraction of the license area. There's another 3 or 4 targets. We're aware that some work had been done, but not to that extent. So yeah, that does show, especially the grades that are possible there and the widespread nature of it, plus the widespread anomalies, especially with zinc and copper. So we think that it is far better than we originally thought. But obviously, it takes a lot more work to prove all this. But the grades are significant. The intervals of size and they're at shallow depths. They're basically at surface. So yeah, very positive.
So you mentioned zinc and copper, but there was also antimony talked about in the release. What was the significance of the antimony in your eyes?
Well, antimony is a critical mineral, and one of the things about critical minerals, and there's also potentially, which hasn't been assayed for, germanium and gallium, because we know that some of that in the region, and a neighbour of ours has actually found germanium and gallium. They're critical minerals, particularly for the US military. I believe the US doesn't have any domestic supply of antimony at the moment. You've seen China put an export ban on it. The price has skyrocketed in the last 6 to 9 months, even the last few weeks. So that's important for the fact that we know that the US government, at the behest of its military, is looking to spend infrastructure funds in Canada, get some access to critical minerals in terms of building all-weather roads, 12 months a year roads, which is very important infrastructure in terms of getting a cost base down for producers. So that's whether or not there's any commercial amounts of antimony there is one thing, but if it's widespread, around the region with gallium and germanium, it certainly helps make the argument for infrastructure.
Yeah, so I mean, you mentioned the USA there. Do you think Bear-Twit could potentially be of strategic interest to the USA, given the array of metals that you're talking about here?
Well, interestingly, Bear-Twit's not too far away from another company called Fireweed. And Fireweed's got a big tungsten resource called the project MacTung. And we know that tungsten's obviously got military applications as well. So we wouldn't be the only person in the neighbourhood. I mean, MacTung and MacPass are big projects. I mean, MacPass is one of the world's biggest undeveloped zinc projects. So, all these things help. I mean, they've got a road, which is not 12 months a year road, but they've got a road which originally was developed by the US military in World War II for another, I think for oil and gas, actually. So it wouldn't be the first time the US military is actually built infrastructure in that part of the world.
Right. So, I mean, you guys seem to be cracking on with a lot. Do you have your hands full, or are you on the lookout for other opportunities?
Well, we've certainly got our hands full with particularly Falcon and Bear-Twit, but you never say never to other opportunities. I mean, we have seen some extremely good things, great assets in Canada and the USA in the last 6 months. We spent a lot of time on them. We got, I think, outbid by a couple of ASX companies on one and a neighbour on another. But there are, I mean, every crisis creates an opportunity, and certainly life's tough in the UK markets. I think most people would appreciate. But I tell you what, that there's some great assets going for very little in Canada at the moment. And if the market turns, we all hope it will. You might say in 2 years' time, in 3 years' time, but damn, these guys got some good bargains over there. Because if the TSX turns and be like Australia, that the TSX companies will gobble up everything again.
Yeah, well, we can live in hope for the market to turn. I think I think a lot of participants in the sector will echo those sentiments. Thanks very much for talking us through all that, Hamish.
Not a problem. Good to be here.